I think we're sick of these big battle royale games as a live service type of games. And I say that because so far we have seen the either cancellation of or the ending of a lot of live service games, right? Rumbleverse, Babylon's Fall, Marvel's Avengers, even earlier, Anthem, Apex Legends, at least on the mobile device, and like even Ubisoft canceled like 3 unannounced games, which we know were pretty much going to be games live service. There's another game called Echo VR I just looked up. I have never heard of it in my life. That got canceled. That's being suspended. And then when you juxtapose that with the most recent games that have come out, you had, God of War Ragnarok, huge game. The Last of Us, people love it so much, it got a remake, a remaster, and a remake of part 1. Even right now, regardless of how you would feel about it, the new Harry Potter game is literally the most watched game on Twitch, beating the previous single player experience in Cyberpunk 2077. Even EA, who once famously said that single player games are dead, have been low-key releasing a lot more single player games and canceling their bigger games as a service game. Look, Dead Space, that's EA, Dead Space remake, and people freaking love that. They're coming out with Jedi Survivor in a couple of months now. I think in April it's releasing. We have seen, I feel like, a shift in the gaming space. And one, honestly, personally, I welcome. I've always been more into single player games, maybe because I didn't grow up with lots of friends, so I played by myself, or maybe those are just a higher quality. Who knows? I don't know. I think I understand why the shift's happening. When it comes to multiplayer games, they're always going to be around. That's not what I'm trying to get at here. But multiplayer games, especially like the battle royales, they rely so much on the player base, and because player bases are vast and diverse, it's hard to get a consistent player base to play your particular game. Of course, Fortnite is the huge example of the battle royale genre, right? It literally took over from PUBG, which still exists, and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. But you have Fortnite, you have Modern Warzone, I should say, you have Apex Legends, and a ton of other games, right? But those are the big 3. Those are the only ones that have been able to kind of stand out and hold their own. But everything else is kind of just fallen by the wayside. Sure, you have your Naraka Blade points, but that did enough to differentiate itself to give some people something different. But then it's Rumbleverse, that's not going to do. I think Knockout City is also done. There's been so many different types of battle royale games, but they don't really compare because they don't do enough to iterate. And that's, I think, what's the biggest issue people are having here, right? If you're looking at the space right now, a lot of people are not playing Modern Warfare 2 anymore. They're turning away from the content. They're stopping creating content. One of the big content creators in that space has just said he's no longer doing so. And that's huge. With the release of Modern Warfare 2.0, they've seemed to have actually lost a substantial number of players, or at the very least, that's the public perception, which is not good. And because they've made so many changes. And I'm when it comes to those kinds of games, those kind of things can kill you, right? One of the benefits of those games is this flexibility. If players don't like something one way, you can always tweak it. But with that comes a huge risk that if you tweak something too much, it might make it unrecognizable. Look at games like Overwatch, for example. Every time there's a character tweak, you get thousands of comments and hundreds of threads talking why this character is nerfed, unplayable, and this and that. Just really, people just dissenting. Same thing's happening with Modern Warfare. That happens in a lot of those games in those genres, which can also kill a game. But you don't get that in single player experiences. With a single player game, there's an expectation of it being a story or an experience that's been crafted for you, but not into the sense of you get to do what you want, but here's a story that we want you to play. Here's an experience we want to make for you that isn't reliant on other people. And I feel like nowadays that's a huge selling point. It doesn't matter how good of a game you make. If it's reliant on a bunch of people always playing it, the risk that you have is exponentially higher than a single player game. Because what if your game is stellar? It has great movement, it's fluid, it's Titanfall 2. But no one's playing that game. right? Because the game relied on multiplayer also, and people were just like, we're not into it, and they pivot to Apex. Just a quick aside. When I said it was like a relied on multiplayer, I didn't mean it was like a battle royale. I meant more in the sense that like EA was relying on the multiplayer to really carry it, and because they didn't really do that, they kind of ant the game. But good game overall. And if you're enjoying this video, why don't you guys throw me a little like, give me some love, comment on the video, share it, subscribe. That'd be super cool. You can watch more high quality content like this. How's your day going, by the way? You guys playing any new games or anything? Nope. I'll just keep the video going. I'll keep the video going. But yeah, like, comment, subscribe, all those fun things. Which ultimately was a good chance. But what if that didn't happen? Then you have all these great mechanics, but no one to experience it because it's relying on the experience with other people. Same thing with, any of the battle royale games. You have to engage with other people. And by engaging with other people, you're at the whim of other people. Those people could be like, hey, you know what? This gun sucks now, so we're not going to play until you fix this gun. Or this gun's too powerful. We're not going to play until you fix this gun. You're constantly trying to manage expectations between the user base and what you want to put as a creator. Whereas in the single player space, you don't have to worry about that. And as a consumer, it's nice to just be like, hey, I'm going to play God of War and I'm going to get God of War. I'm not going to get a shitty game because, oh man, I'm playing against some scrubs, or I'm playing with some scrubs, or hell, I'm the scrub and I'm not enjoying myself. That can't happen. You can adjust the difficulty in most single player games. And I really think that having a crafted experience for yourself is just something people desperately want nowadays. Because again, we are just flooded with so many battle royale games, and again, they don't iterate. I mean, think about it. Even if you change the weapons that you use, ultimately you're just a bunch of players on a map fighting on an ever shrinking map until one person wins, and it's winner chicken deal, victory royale, right? That gets stale after a while. I mean, hell, that's why Fortnite started doing like chapters and seasons, trying to change up the landscape and the visuals and add all these crossover characters to keep people engaged, because without doing that, the game gets stale very, very quickly. Now, Fortnite has some crack in their thing. I don't know, like, because that shit gets bigger and bigger. And I see some clips of Fortnite, it's completely unrecognizable to me. But Fortnite is sort of like an aberration. What typically happens is what's happening to, like, unfortunately, Rumbleverse, where it looks cool, you'll play it for a hot minute, and then they drop it because it's like, what more is there? And that's the trap you run into. If you put, not enough content there because you're not sure if people are going to like it, then most people won't continue to play it. And if you put too much content, which means too much money, into it at one time, and it doesn't do well, then yes, it's some cost, right? You have to eat that cost. But again, in single player games, you put the money in and it's like, that's it, right? Win or lose, that's it. That's how much the game costs. But even if the game doesn't do as well, the loss is not as big, right? Because you don't have these huge teams working constantly updating it on stuff. It's like, once the game is done, it's pretty much done. The developers might go down to a skeleton crew if there's DLC, or they might just move to a different project, something else. But if it's a live service game, you have to have like large groups of people on standby whose whole job is just to, manage it. I mean, hell, support teams, right? Technical support. And a live service game is going to be pretty fully staffed because people are going to have different kinds of issues, and you have to pay people to manage those issues. I also think that single player games, honestly, the narrative is where it's at. And I think that's why a lot of people are switching back over to single player games. And a lot of companies are starting to realize that single player games also make money. Like it's just true. They make money. Then those are the games that are typically the most prestigious. They have the most awards. They, I would say, even have the higher replayability, because in a multiplayer game, sure, you can play all these maps or whatever, but you can't like replay. You can't like relive an experience. There is no learning of like boss patterns, for example, so you can get that catharsis of just destroying a boss who's killing you. There is no like reliving a crucial emotional point in the story and really getting those feels in it, right? And you can't even like share that experience with someone else. Like when I have children, I can be like, hey, here's one of my favorite games, and it's like Final Fantasy VII, and I can give that to them, and you can share that experience. You can help, even with your friends. You're like, hey, You might like this game, you can play this game. But again, when it becomes a live service game, those big battle arena games, it's all dependent on other people. Oh, yeah, this game was super fun. Hey, go play it. You can't get into a game because only 2 other people are playing, and you need a minimum of 4 people to play. You know what I mean? Like, it's too dependent on outside factors, and I think game companies are starting to realize that, and that's why we're kind of seeing a pullback on that and more of a push for single player games. I looked up not too long ago a list of upcoming single player games. This is provided by GameRanks. There are 33 upcoming single player games that I think people are fairly hyped for. You know, like Final Fantasy 16, Final Fantasy Remake 7 Part 2, Atomic Heart's coming out, Black Myth Wukong, which is actually coming out next year, but Starfield. Like, there's a lot of single player games that are coming out, and people are excited for that. And I'm happy people are excited for that, because I always think that, and this is a bias, obviously, single player games are the better overall experience. Yes, if you have friends you can always play with, it's sick to be like, yeah, we won a raid last night in Destiny. But if you're like me, and either you don't have friends who play these kinds of games, or you don't have friends, but you know, I'm sorry, single player games always be there for you. Everyone can play a single player game. Basically, TLDR, if you guys just skip to the end, I think single player games are the superior gaming experience because they do not rely on outside factors such as servers, internet connections, other people playing the game, and other people ruining the game. That's another thing too. Single player games are immune to trolls. You cannot be trolled in a single player game. No one can mess with you. Unless it's the Soulsborne's game. But that's a little bit different. That's not really... You could turn it off. But yeah, I feel like they're just the overall better experience.